Hi, I'm Jerry Wise, and I'm a therapist at Family Tree Counseling Associates in Carmel, Indiana. And I would like to share with you this video entitled Shame, Nobody Could Possibly Love Me. I wanted to do an introductory video on shame. Again, a lot of people ask about this subject. It's a very important one, and I think important for folks who are wanting to recover and heal from hurts and problems that they've experienced in their lives, and also to heal and help marriages as well. So what is shame? I contrast guilt and shame. Guilt is a feeling resulting from what I have done. Shame is a feeling resulting from who I am. If you want to think about the difference between guilt and shame, it's not that I have made a mistake, but I am a mistake. And that's a message someone would feel who experiences shame. What are the voices and messages of shame? People describe it this way: I can't relate to people, I'm a failure, I've never been good enough, nobody could possibly love me, I'm inadequate as a man, I'm inadequate as a woman, and deep down I have an inner feeling that I'm really worthless as a person. You know, society has a lot of taboos and a lot of taboo subjects. One of them we know is sex. Sex is kind of a taboo subject. It's becoming less and less of a taboo, but it is a taboo thing to talk about in many circles. You know, there's another subject that has a taboo in our society, and that's the subject of shame. Shame is a taboo subject. Just try to bring it up. Just kind of talk about it with anyone, and everyone shuts down like you are talking about something very embarrassing, very difficult, and something that should not be discussed. Many of us live with shame, but do not recognize it, nor are we aware of it. And again, if you have a very uncomfortable feeling, it's not easy to be aware of those feelings, particularly if they're really painful. Our mind kind of does a nice thing and kind of buffers us from those really, really painful feelings. That's good, but on the other hand, if we don't identify, express, and resolve those feelings, then that can be a problem, particularly with regard to shame. In its beginnings, the beginnings of shame in our life, shame results from interpersonal exposure of inadequacy or unworthiness, or at least felt inadequacy or felt unworthiness. It's quite possible when we had those interpersonal exposures or learned experiences of shame, someone on the other end, i.e. our parents, a teacher, a pastor, their intent was not to shame us, but we did end up feeling shamed. Interpersonally induced shame develops into internally induced shame. So if we experience shame, and we experience shame growing up, what the problem with shame is that we end up picking up that pattern and doing it to ourselves the rest of our lives. So if we had an interpersonal experience of shame where someone had shamed us or we felt shamed, then we internalize that and then end up doing that to ourselves. A person with internalized shame believes he or she is inherently flawed, inferior, or defective. When we internalize shame, we disown ourselves. Let me give you an example of how shame might be formed. Let's take a dad and his son. A dad is a carrier of the family shame from his family of origin. And he has experienced a lot of shame growing up with very critical mother or angry, alcoholic father, any number of circumstances can produce quite a bit of shame in a family. Or maybe there's been a suicide or some type of event that just felt shameful for the family. Then that gets passed on in secrets and where things felt very wrong and very taboo. And again, out of that garden of taboo and secrets blossoms shame. So dad's being a carrier for the family shame. He has a son, and now this son is playing pee-wee football. He's a very small child, out there having fun, having a good time, enjoying being with his friends and having a great time. Gets the football, and in his exuberance, runs the wrong way and takes the football all the way down to the end zone, the wrong end of the field. Everyone's laughing. Some people are okay with it. Some people think, hey, that's just kids. Some parents are mad because that has hurt their team's score, whatever has happened. But the dad connects with his own shame, connects with his family shame, connects with his family enmeshment over that shame, is enmeshed with his son. In other words, his son is me. My ego has to do with my son's success. The son has just made a major faux pas and a major mistake and somewhat embarrassing, but it so strikes dad so hard. He yells at his son. He is merciless in his frustration, anger, and embarrassment with his son. And in fact, his shame turns to more anger and rage rather than the dad identifying his shame. And he tells his son he's so stupid for running the wrong way, and he's embarrassed his dad and his team and the whole family for what he's done. Well, what does the child learn? What does the son learn as a result of that event? Well, one, he learns to pay attention and not to run the wrong way with the football. So there may be one small positive lesson, but then there's a significant negative lesson that gets learned. That mistakes equals something's wrong with him, and that he is basically flawed. He was inadequate, defective, inferior, and that's why he ran the wrong way. Because if he wasn't that way, then he would have done it right. And since dad and our fathers and our family of origin equals the norm for this world for the child, because we are who are parents, we basically set and develop what's norm for our children. So he's looking at dad and says, well, that's normal. And dad imprints and projects what is normal onto his son. The son believes, well, dad must be right. I mean, look how stupid I was for doing that. And maybe people should feel really stupid for making a mistake like that. So I'm really messed up. And so there's something wrong with me. So now I begin to internalize the shame and embarrassment. Also, if you notice, it's an interpersonal wounding. Dad withdraws his approval, affection, acceptance because of the son's behavior. And so that again teaches that, hey, I just didn't do something wrong. I just didn't make a mistake. I'm wrong. There's something wrong with me, not just that I messed up on my behavior. Well, how do we recover from shame? First of all, we begin to stop being a carrier for our family's shame and the shame of our family of origin. We resolve our issues of shame that developed in our family of origin. Actually, some issues of shame go back 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations. You can have shame that gets passed on, and family members become carriers of that shame for several generations. And so identifying those are very important. For example, I think of families in which there's a grandparent suicided and took their own life. created a considerable amount of shame for the other grandparent plus their children, which gets passed on down to the grandchildren. So now we have 3 generations of shame around that suicide, for example. Second of all, that's the family shame that we end up carrying. Second of all, we identify, express, and resolve our own internalized shame. And we begin to see how shame shapes us, how we speak negatively of ourselves, how we think, boy, I'm so unlovable, or man, that'd be like me to do that, I'm so stupid. That's shame talking when we say things like that. And to identify and resolve that internalized shame is so very important. And in addition to these things, I also think about and consider family systems type of questions, which I think helps me identify how can I begin to loosen and dislodge the shame that's so strongly connected to all of my mental process, emotional process, family of origin process. And I do that through questioning. One would be, if I no longer experience shame, what would be the downsides or the negative consequences of no longer having that shame? Well, most of us on the surface would go, oh, it would be wonderful. Everything would be great. There wouldn't be a downside. I just wouldn't have that shame anymore. I'd be happy and fulfilled and go off on my merry way. When actually, I don't think that's fully the case. There certainly would be some benefits if we resolve our shame. There's no doubt. But oftentimes, shame becomes very lodged within us, and then shame ends up being something that works for us as well as hurts us. Many times, just like codependency, for example, codependency hurts, but it also protects us in some ways and serves us in some ways. Because if I'm afraid of getting hurt, what's the best thing to do? Well, be codependent or counterdependent. Then you won't be as connected to someone else and you're not going to get hurt. So there's an upside to the down type or negative problem. Shame not only hurts, it also works. And for example, if I give up my shame or my shame disappeared, I would feel less depressed. I would feel more empowered. I would feel stronger about myself and about my voice. I would then be able to confront my husband or wife. They wouldn't like that, and they therefore would yank their love or sex or any number of things from me or reject me in some way. So if I keep the shame in place, then that keeps me safe in my box or my prison, so I won't get hurt or rejected, etc. And so I won't, I'll be able to stay safe in my comfort zone. And I stay in the prison of either being controlled by my spouse, but at least it's safer than if I come out of that box. So those types of dynamics can keep shame locked within us. And I think that those kinds of questions can help us explore more about our shame and actually make progress. I want to thank you for listening today. You can find more videos at Family Tree Counseling Associates channel on YouTube, or you can look on www.familytreecounseling.com, or you can call me at 317-919-6264 if you'd like more help with shame. Thanks for listening, and have a good day.